Hello friends, I welcome you to tutorial number 4. So we're still working with the silicone button control, and today we're going to be looking at the button mode. And as we cover this topic, we're going to be looking at other properties as well. So the button mode property has 3 type modes. It is a default button, radio button, toggle button. So let's see how we can work with those. So we're going to delete this button and we're going to add a new button. And we have to copy this button and duplicate the button at least 3 times so that we can see how the modes can be applied when we are working with several buttons. I'm going to change the fill color to gray. I'm going to change the back color, the fore color to black. There we have our buttons. So when these buttons are added onto a form, they are general buttons. When we run the project, we can see that they are just general buttons with default properties configured. Hence, there's no much we can do because they are just general buttons. But we like to transform these buttons into something that we can use, especially when we are making a tab control and so forth. So we're going to set the property for each button to radio button. Now let's run and see what happens. Let's give it a moment to build and run. Yes, when the button is clicked, as we can see, the background changes. When another button is clicked, the second button is clicked, you can see that the first button is deselected and the second button is selected. If you look at the third button or the first button, there are hover effects when the cursor hovers or rests over the control. And when we click, the button is selected. And when the cursor rests over the control, there are no hover effects because that is the currently selected button. This can work when we are trying to create a tab button where we are switching tabs. For example, from the first tab to the second tab to the third tab. So let's try to change the checked state of every button. Remember that the check state property works only if the button mode property is either set to toggle button or to radio button. It does not work when the button mode is set to default button because we cannot check or select a default button the same way we would select a radio button. So for the checked state to work, the button mode has to be either radio button or toggle button. In this case, we have set the buttons to radio button, and we can therefore configure the checked state so that when we click on the button or when a button is checked, several properties under the checked state main property are applied. So we want to change the fill color of the button when it is selected. Let's set the fill color to hot track, and we like to set the fore color to white. And we also want to change I think the border color, we can change it later when we configure the border color for this button. So let's just run the project for these configured controls and see what we have when these properties are changed. There it is. So I can toggle or switch buttons. When I click the selected button or double click, nothing happens because we are selecting an already selected button. Hence, there is no further selection that can happen beyond that point because the button is already selected. Let's stop the project. So let's go to the button radius. I want to show you something, guys. The button radius. Let's change it to 5. And let's change the border color to, it's set to black, but let's change the border thickness to 2. There it is. We have the border right there. So we can make this a tab even though it is comprised of default buttons. It's possible to create a tab when using this silicone button, which makes the customization endless, because since it is a regular button, you can make whatever customization you want on a regular button and just convert it to a toggle or radio button. In this case, these are radio buttons, so you can only select one button on a group of buttons. In this case, we have 3 buttons making a group of buttons, and you can select only one button at a time. Sorry, you cannot select 2 buttons at the same time because they are all set to radio buttons right here. But there's something I want to show you guys. Would like to change the color for the border. As you can see, the fill color is silver. Would like to save the border color to silver as well. Then when the button is selected, we would like to set the border color to, let's say, green, lime green, and let's run. Of course, we can set this border color to the fill color, but for demonstration purposes, I want you to see what happens. Yes. Let's change this from lime green to hot track so that the border can match the back color when selected. There it is. Yes, there it is. We can set this to white if we want. So let's change the border color unchecked to white. So to see the customization, we are going to change the back color to a darker color, and we're going to set this to white, the border color of this group of buttons to white. And as you can see here, the border color is set to white. We want to change the border style because it is a solid border. Let's set it to dash style and see what happens. There it is. Because this is a button control, you can configure each button as a regular button, and you can simply change its type to radio button and then apply the checked state styling to achieve maximum customization. So you can create a tab that has very beautiful tab buttons because this is a general button, hence you can apply maximum customization and simply convert the button to a radio button. So this is just a sample of what you can do. You can change the border style to anything from dashed to dot, dash dot, and so forth. Let's just try the dash dot style and see what we have. There it is. So where can we use this? We can use this when you are creating a tab control. We can put a panel right here like this. Of course, we have demonstrations on our website which demonstrate this, but I'm just going to quickly show you. You can put a panel here and you can create some user controls that are going to be switched each time each button is clicked, and the panels are going to be switched, or they can slide through this panel that you have there. So you can easily create a tab control by using these buttons. Don't forget something very important, guys, that for these buttons to work as a tab button or tab button controls or a group of buttons, the button mode property has to be set to radio button, not default button, but radio button. So in our next video, we're going to be looking at toggle button. What is toggle button and How does it differ from the radio button? We're going to look at that in our next video. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. My name is Russell Chidakwa. See you next time. Cheers.